As an MMA fan, you probably know that Jon Jones holds the record for becoming the youngest UFC champion at 23.
Light heavyweight champion of the world, Jon Bones Jones!
And that Derek Lewis is at the top of the list when it comes to most knockouts in the same organization.
For quite a while. Big Lewis does it again! Do you believe it?
But did you know there are UFC records for the highest takedown accuracy or significant strike defense held by fighters you probably never heard of before?
They're bad. They're going to stop the fight.
Let's look into some of the UFC records you had no idea existed. Takedown accuracy, 76.2%. No, it's not Khabib nor his friend Makhachev. It's a fighter you would probably never guess.
Can give any welterweight problems.
Although Nordine Taleb is known as the fighter who has given the sport one of the best karma moments against Eric Silva, he also holds the record for highest takedown accuracy at 76.2%. The guy doesn't always wrestle, but when he does, he makes sure to do it right. Significant clinch strikes landed, 95. Yes, there's a record for most strikes landed from a clinch position. But what if I told you that this record is held by a heavyweight? Roy Nelson hits like a tank, and if you don't believe me, just ask Big Nog or Brendan Schaub. You can outstrike him for most of the fight, but he always has that nuclear option to shut someone's lights off instantly. Don't be fooled by his physical appearance. Fighting Nelson during his prime was quite tricky. He was a heavy-handed puncher and a BJJ black belt, so one could wonder what a perfect game plan against Big Country would be. Well, Josh Barnett came up with the most suitable plan to defeat Roy, and that was fighting him in the clinch, where he wasn't able to launch his significant overhand right.
1 minute off the round, 3 o'clock.
Need to see some work up, right?
Not only did Barnett beat Nelson convincingly on the judges' scorecard, but he also broke the record for most significant clinch strikes landed.
A lot of this fight is
delivering a heavy cargo of 95 strikes in their bout.
very fast-paced fight. Now landing shot after shot against Nelson.
Bottom position time, 1 second. If Justin Tafa had fought Jailton Almeida, maybe this record would have changed in an instant. However, the Samoan fighter has spent only a second in the bottom position, holding the record for the shortest bottom position time in the UFC. Although he is number 1 on this list, one Dagestani wrestler is enough to remove Tafa's name from this record book permanently. Oldest UFC champion, 43 years, 8 months old. Randy Couture secured his 3rd UFC heavyweight championship at 43 years and 8 months by defeating Tim Sylvia at UFC 68.
Randy, the natural Couture.
This victory not only made him the oldest UFC champion ever, but also set a record for the oldest age at which a fighter has held a UFC title, remaining champion until he was 45 years and 4 months old. This achievement stands as one of the most remarkable records in UFC history, as it is highly improbable to be surpassed. While experience is invaluable, the most common age range for UFC fighters to retire is between 35 and 40, making it exceedingly rare for fighters to become UFC champions after turning 40. Glover Teixeira is the only other fighter to achieve this feat. Latest finish in UFC history, 0 seconds remaining. In an unusual turn of events, Ricky Simon clinched victory over Merab Dvalishvili with a mounted guillotine choke, marking the latest finish in the promotion's history.
My goodness!
He's not out. No, he's okay.
At first, it looked like this clash would be decided by the judges, as the horn sounded and many believed Merab would win by decision. Following deliberation among officials, Bruce Buffer declared Ricky Simon the winner, with Merab appearing unconscious, kicking his feet and turning blue.
Liam Kerrigan.
The decision sparked controversy as the fight had gone the distance, leading many to argue it should have been decided by the judges' scorecards, since the referee was unaware of Merab's unconscious state and did not stop the fight.
Trying to keep his hands up there. I can't tell if he's out. He's out.
However, according to the official unified rules of MMA, instant replay can be used to review a fight-ending sequence only after a fight is officially stopped.
He's out right there.
Since the fight had ended, instant replay was permitted to determine Merab's unconsciousness, resulting in a TKO decision rather than a submission victory, as there was no tap or referee intervention.
Well, congratulations.
TKO or submission, this outcome stands as a unique UFC record, unlikely to be surpassed or equaled. Significant ground strikes landed, 100. His style might be boring, but here's another record held by Neil Magny. The American implemented a leech technique against the Cuban powerhouse, Hector Lombard, and blasted his head with 100 shots, marking the record for most significant ground strikes landed in a fight.
Referee watching things closely here. Magny piling on.
You might wonder where Kevin Lee fits in all of this. Well, he's right behind Magny with 96 significant ground strikes against Edson Barboza. Most decision victories, 14. One of the least popular records to hold in the UFC is the record for most decision victories. We all know why that is. Everyone prefers to see an exciting fight that ends with a flashy knockout or a slick submission. Perhaps that's why Neil Magny never enjoyed the love and popularity of the fans. He's known as someone who struggles to finish fights decisively and stands alone at the top with 14 UFC decision victories. Whether you like him or not, he holds another record that should not be underestimated. The most wins in UFC welterweight history with 22. Well, not everyone possesses Ngannou's power in their hands or Oliveira's ability to submit their adversary.
I mean, he's just doing everything perfect. Outstanding.
Most takedowns in a single bout and round, 21-9. As one of the best wrestlers in history, it's no surprise that Khabib holds the record for the most takedowns in a UFC fight in a single round. During UFC 160, Khabib executed 21 takedowns against Abel Trujillo,
Grappling style, beautiful takedown.
with 9 takedowns in the third round alone.
Beat up.
Abel's a legitimate 4-time NAIA All-American wrestler, but he was facing a different kind of challenge from the mountains of Dagestan. He simply could not stay on his feet. What makes this UFC record even more impressive is that it was achieved in a 3-round fight, not a 5-round bout. While the record of 21 takedowns in a UFC fight could be surpassed in a 5-round fight with an extra 10 minutes, the record of 9 takedowns in a single UFC round is far more challenging.
Heel back up to his feet again and down again.
However, this sport is so unpredictable. In a recent bout between Jailton Almeida and Curtis Blades, the Brazilian scored 9 takedowns in the first round, matching Khabib's record.
Just kicked his foot off.
Ironically, Blades weathered the storm in the first round
And now he's on a big stage.
and emerged victorious in the second.
Curtis Blades, the heavy hands, waits.
Shortest average fight time, 2 minutes 10 seconds. Tom Aspinall boxes like a sniper and kicks like a mule. He's the current interim UFC heavyweight champion who is not keen on taking prisoners. The Englishman holds the record for the shortest average fight time, with his fights ending in 2 minutes and 10 seconds on average. Topping even the Russian monster Sergey Pavlovich, whose average fight time is 2 minutes and 13 seconds. Maybe the next fighter on this list should learn a thing or two from Tom, and here is why. Most wins in a single year, 5. Only 10 UFC fighters have ever had 5 UFC fights in a single year, and just 3 of them managed to win all 5 fights. Those fighters were Donald Cerrone and Neil Magny in 2014, and the big mouth Kevin Holland in 2020. Cerrone and Magny also fought 5 times in 2015, winning 4 out of 5 fights. So over 2 years, they each had 10 UFC fights and won 9 out of 10, setting an additional UFC record that will likely stand for some time. While achieving 5 UFC wins in a year is not impossible, it's incredibly difficult given that UFC fighters typically compete 2 to 3 times a year on average. Taking that into consideration, this record is likely to remain unbroken for many years.
Huge shot by Cerrone.
Significant strike defense, 84.4%. When it comes to impenetrable defense, John Madsen is quite the Paolo Maldini of MMA. Although he was never championship material or a star people remember, Madsen holds the record for best significant strike defense at 84.4%. That dude clearly knows how to evade punches. Longest UFC event, 3 hours 19 minutes. While not the most impressive one, UFC 263 broke a record that we won't see any other UFC event surpass anytime soon. This event holds the record for the longest fight time in UFC history, clocking in at 3 hours 19 minutes and 32 seconds. To put this into perspective, only 3 UFC events have ever exceeded the 3-hour mark in total fight time, making this a record likely to endure for quite some time. The prolonged duration of UFC 263 can be attributed to several factors. Firstly, the event featured 2 title fights, each scheduled for 5 rounds of 5 minutes, and both of these title bouts went the distance. Additionally, while 5-round fights have traditionally been reserved for title fights and main events, UFC 263 had a non-main event and non-title fight between Nate Diaz and Leon Edwards, which also lasted the full 25 minutes.
Seconds of this 5-round affair! Wow! What a fight! Crazy.
Furthermore, unlike the average UFC event, which typically includes 11 or 12 fights, UFC 263 included a total of 14 fights, with 11 of them going the distance. This combination of factors makes it highly unlikely that this record will be broken anytime soon. Thank you so much for tuning in to watch this video, and we look forward to seeing you in the next one.